All right, in this video we're going to be talking about supply, and let me go ahead and give you the basics. Okay, so talking about supply, and the first word I want to define here is the quantity supplied, and we can use a Q sub S for that, and this is the amount of a good or service that sellers are willing and able to sell, okay, at a specific price. So that they're willing and able to sell at a specific price. Okay, and so this is going to be similar to our idea about quantity supplied. So this is a particular quantity that goes with a particular price. Now, one of the things, the first things we want to ask ourselves is, well, what's going to happen to this willingness to sell if price goes up? So let's suppose right now we got a certain price, and then this good gets more expensive. What are the sellers going to want to do? So if the price goes up, we would expect, take a second to think about it, maybe pause. Yeah, we would expect them to want to sell more. And if the price goes down, we would want to expect them to want to sell less. Okay, so this is known as the law of supply. Okay, so we expect our supply curve then to look like this. Okay, we expect this to be our supply curve. Now, we can point out one thing. So, for example, here, where it starts, there's some price that nobody wants to go below. And so if we go below that price, nobody wants to sell it because the price is too low. They can't even cover their costs. They can't make any profit. And so then no one will sell. And so their quantity would be zero. And then as we move up, more and more people, more and more firms become willing to sell. Part of the reason at the higher prices, more firms can cover their costs, and they also get their desired level of profit. Okay, so it's kind of intuitive. We kind of expect this, but our supply curve is going to go up. For now, we're not going to really go any deeper into the slope, and we're just going to go straight onto the shifts. Okay, so we have this as law of demand. That means it's upward sloping. Okay, we know it's upward sloping, and now the question we have is, well, what about shifts? What about the shifts in supply? So the shifts in supply, contrary to what you might be thinking, you're probably thinking it's going to shift up and down. Well, it's going to be the same as the shift in demand. What we're going to call a shift is going to be our at the same price. Okay, so like imagine this price here. Then increase in supply would be they want to sell more. So even if the price was to remain the same, they now want to sell more. That would be considered an increase in supply. And then we have a decrease in supply would be at the same price, they want to sell less. Okay, for example. So when we're talking about shifts, we're saying, imagine if you think of every price, no matter what the price, the market just wants to sell more now, or no matter what the price, the market wants to supply less. So this is the idea. So let's think of the factors that might affect this. Okay, so let's start with factor number one. So we're getting shifts in supply. Probably go ahead and pause for just a second, and therefore you can kind of think of what some of the things that might cause these shifts would be on your own, and then come back and see if you're right. So number one, and this one's kind of covers a lot of area, is input prices. Now, input prices could be natural resources in some cases, or in other cases they might be manufactured goods, where like somebody who's making mobile phones, but they're using components that are made by other companies. So it could be all kinds of things. So we expect when the prices, I'm just going to do one direction, when the price of inputs rise, so then producing selling the good at a specific, producing and selling the good at a specific price, at a set price, is going to be less profitable. So firms want to do less of it. Okay, that's the idea. So if you can think of any specific price, and then if you think of the firm their costs going up because their inputs go up. Well, now they're making less profit, so they want to do less of it, right? So they're less interested in selling this thing. So firms will supply less. Oops, missed the word supply. Supply less. Okay, so you get the idea. So yeah, that's in general. We would expect if our price of our inputs goes up, then they want to supply less. And to see what this looks like on our graph, so on our graph, remember we put Q on the x-axis and P on the y-axis, and here's our supply curve. And so then if our inputs went up, then this is going to decrease supply. Some of you might, so that would be our decreased supply. Now some of you might be thinking, well, it looks like it's going up, but actually if you look at a specific point, like here, then at that same price, the quantity was here before, and now, so the quantity was here before that they want to supply, and now the quantity is back here. Okay, so it indeed is a decrease in the willingness to supply at any given price. Okay, so this gives us the idea. Again, higher priced inputs eat away at their profits, and they want to do less, holding everything else constant. Just like before, all of these changes are going to be ceteris paribus, meaning we assume everything else is held constant. Okay, moving on to the next one. We can also say natural conditions. I'm not going to say much about this one, but if there's some change in the natural conditions for producing this good, then that can affect costs and affect ability and willingness to supply, right? So this is things like weather, climate, right? Water availability, or something else. So this could make, if it shifts one way, it could make things easier to produce, in which case it would be an increase in supply. And if it shifts the other way, it could make things harder to produce, which could then decrease supply, right? But we're not going to, I won't go ahead and, actually I will. So draw one example. So let's say we have severe drought. There's not enough water. Then we might find in some farming, the ability to produce will go way down. Okay, so before this was the case, and then we're going to get a decrease in supply. So if this is maybe, let's say rice farming, right, and they get a severe drought, well, rice needs a lot of water, then we're going to have a decrease in supply of rice in this case. Okay, so moving on to the next one, technology. So this time I'll draw the increase so you can see both sides. Some of those, like inputs and natural conditions, could be positive shocks. I just showed them as a negative just to kind of save time. So if technology improves, then so improvement of technology can lower costs, right? Lower costs means that they're going to make more money at a given price, and so they're going to increase supply. You'll get the idea. So this will be a shift to the right. Let's go ahead and show what that looks like just to make sure we're clear on it. Okay. Let me put a little bit up actually. What's the same? Okay, so here we go. We get an increase in supply, and that's because the technology makes it cheaper for them to produce, so at the same price they can now make more profit. Okay, so now they're willing at the same price. I'm not saying the price will necessarily stay the same, but if you just imagine at any given price, they're willing to produce more because they can make more profit than they were before at that price. Okay, one last final one, and then we'll wrap up this video. Could be expectations, right? So just like we had in demand, expectations of the future, right? So we could have, if they expect a higher price in the future, they may store it, right? So if we expect an increase in the price in the future, then they may decrease supply now, right? They're saving, they're storing it. This is only if it's something that can be stored, like agricultural products or something like property, where you hold it now and then you sell it in the future. And then if we expect a big drop in the price in the future, then people want to sell now, right? So they might want to sell more now. And this notation, the big S, just means the supply curve. So we're talking about shifts in the supply curve. Okay, in the next video, we're going to put the two things together.